Hi there, it's Thursday. We're going live on my page, Botanically. My name is Tanya Uester. Welcome. And we are chatting today about a very herbaceous oil. Let me just go and kill my WhatsApp there so there's no sound effects. There we go. So we're just talking about marjoram. So on my page, Botanically, for quite some time now, I've been running quite a few single essential oil classes, a continued education, and that's obviously going to continue until I've gone through most of the essential oils that we do have available for use in South Africa. And we are on episode 14 today, which is quite exciting. So I'm going to say welcome to Marie. I can see you've just logged in. I did see someone else actually logged in, and then my eye just missed for a second who it was. Oh, it's Zahira. Welcome, Zahira. I can see your hands waving. So welcome today. We're talking about marjoram, which is probably an essential oil that a lot of people don't necessarily know how to use. Okay, so we're kind of used to using marjoram in cooking. And I'm telling you now that most people probably, for the untrained eye, don't even know what the difference between a marjoram and an oregano, for example, leaf looks like, because they're both olive-shaped, so oval. And they both have a sort of green color. The one is a little bit of a tinge darker than the other one. They both have hair. So it's quite difficult for the untrained eye. And I thought for very many years when I was still living in Joburg that I actually was growing an oregano plant or oregano plant. And in fact, it was marjoram. It's actually quite ridiculous when I had a friend who was a little bit more green-fingered than I am, who came to visit me and said, Tanya, no, you're growing marjoram. All right, so there is definitely a difference between the two. Although the plants look incredibly similar, both are used extensively in cooking. Obviously, they're both dried as well as fresh ingredients or herbs that we use in cooking. And it gives them quite a unique taste and flavor. Now, the big part or the big difference between both of these, even though they look similar, is obviously the fact that they taste completely different, they smell completely different, and they also have completely different chemical constituents. So oregano and marjoram, even though they look the same, are not going to give you the same therapeutic benefits. Hello, Chucky, I can see you've just logged in as well. Welcome, welcome. All right, so I can see there's more people logged in than there are comments. So if you would like me to shout out and say hi, please go make a comment so I can see who else is logged in. All right, so let's kick off. Marjoram is obviously commonly recognized in cooking. And it's been, it's used in dressings and in soups and in meat dishes because it's got quite a nice flavor. But it's very subdued if you, for example, compare it to oregano. And quite interestingly, it's a very Greek thing. All right. So basically, in olden age or in historical Grecian times, they talk about marjoram being is the symbolism for happiness, right? Joy of mountains. That's what they actually call marjoram. I found that quite interesting. But more than that, also the Germans use this essential oil, or not the essential oil, sorry, the plant. So in Germany, the marjoram herb is actually known as goose herb. And I did have a German tenant for quite a while. And oh my word, he used to cook the most amazing food and he used the most amazing spices. But he always went to these international sort of stores where he would get the cooking herbs and the spices specifically from that country. And I did not know this. Goose herb is marjoram. And the reason they call it goose herb is because they traditionally use it to roast geese. There's an interesting fact for you regarding marjoram, the herb. All right, so let's get into the chemical constituents because it's obviously incredibly different from oregano. And marjoram is mainly based on alcohols and aldehyde groups with a little bit of esters in there. So basically up to 55% terpenine 4-ol, which is obviously an alcohol, and then gamma-terpenine up to about 20%. And then there's quite a few other chemical constituents in there as well. It's actually quite a robust oil because there's so many different parts in it. And obviously those functional groups play very important roles. So if we specifically look, for example, at the terpenine 4-ol, this is an oil that's also in a very high ratio or concentration, I should rather say, in melaleuca or tea tree. And if any of you use tea tree, you know what that alcohol is doing in there. It's right. It's a very cleansing oil, and it has good cleansing properties. Most of them that contain the 4-terpenol are antibacterial. They have antibacterial properties. They have antiviral and antifungal properties. So it's going to have a similar benefit in the body. For example, on that part for melaleuca and tea tree, because it's so high in concentration in the marjoram. Hello, Michelle Caper. I can see you've just joined as well. Welcome today. I haven't seen you for a while. Hope you had a splendid new year. So let's carry on with the marjoram, all right? And then obviously it's also got gamma-terpenine in it. Now, when we start thinking therapeutically what these chemical constituents actually do, terpenol 4-ol, very difficult one to say, sorry, is one of those that is actually very involved where the muscular and the nerves comes together. So it's sort of in that neuromuscular junction part. And for that very reason, marjoram is incredibly supportive to not only the nervous system, but also to the musculoskeletal system. It also has a vasodilator sort of benefit. So here we're thinking very supportive to the cardiovascular system, and a lot of people who are supporting an already good sort of blood pressure system find a lot of benefit from using marjoram. And if you do get on the thickening side of the circulatory system, then oils you can combine marjoram with, because marjoram is almost also like a sort of an adaptogenic essential oil. So when you combine it with things like lavender and ylang-ylang, which are also known to sort of support a really good cardiovascular and circulatory system with regards to the thickness of the blood, then these three essential oils together are really good at sort of bringing the pressure down. So there's a really good essential oil for those kind of conditions. But because it's there in that junction between the muscular and the nerves, you can think that it's going to do quite a lot of good, specifically when you've got muscular discomfort or even joint discomfort, when there's a little bit of tension and inflammatory conditions going and it is causing discomfort. Marjoram is going to be a really good essential oil, specifically when used topically. So when we start looking at the two plants, comparing them again, the oregano and the marjoram, and I do reflect between these two because they just, they just look so incredibly similar. Oregano, for example, has got a more pinkish purple flower. A marjoram whitish flower. Some of them are a little bit pink, especially if you've grown both plants. It always depends on your soil conditions. But the oregano is very high in carvacrol and thymol, right? So it's got a very sharp, and it's a very hot oil, but it's a very sharp sort of flavor. Whereas marjoram is definitely more subdued. It's very calming and it's very soothing. There's even some marjoram oils, depending on which brand you're purchasing and what time of day they're actually harvesting the plants, and also where they actually source the plants from. Some of them actually also contain linalool, and we all remember that linalool is incredibly calming and soothing, not only to the body tissues, but also to the mind and the emotions. So marjoram is more minty. It's not as sharp. It's not such a hot oil, and it almost has a floral, sort of herbaceous and I'd say woodsy kind of smell compared to the oregano. Oregano, of course, smells like pizza. Just a childhood memory there, I think. So basically the calming sensation and the soothing benefit that you get from marjoram on the musculoskeletal system, so specifically when you're dealing with ligament issues or tendons or sprains or muscle related things, then marjoram is incredibly beneficial. Also, because of that junction and where it happens, when you've got involuntary movements, for example, like spasm and things like that, marjoram can really be good there because it actually calms the nervous system down, so it returns to a more voluntary instead of an involuntary movement. All right, so very, very essential oil to be using when you're dealing with musculoskeletal systems. And this is one of the essential oils that is actually in a very high concentration in the blend that I made for my ankle when I tore most of the ligaments off. Yes, so this is part of my incredible blend that basically supported me through my entire healing journey, so much so that I didn't have to take over-the-counter anti-inflammatories because they cause absolute havoc in my gut system, and that would have taken me months to restore. And more than that, obviously, I get quite a few other side effects as well. But marjoram was definitely one of the essential oils that were really beneficial. And at this stage, at the moment, I'm getting now where I'm brave enough to start walking around for most of the day without wearing a brace, because I've really got to start working on strengthening my ankle now and getting those connections. Remember the messages between the brain and the ligaments and those very small movements that your foot needs to make to balance. I've now got to start working on that. So yes, we are touching the pain every now and then, especially if I forget and I walk too quickly and I step a little bit not at the right angle, but it's definitely getting stronger, and Marjoram has definitely played a really good supporting role in that blend for me. It's also incredibly good for head tension, believe it or not. So if the regular essential oils, because remember we are all biochemically different, and it always depends on what's going on in your gut and what's going on in your system at that specific time. But because different essential oils tend to work differently for different people, if you have not found an essential oil that is really good for head tension for you specifically, try Marjoram. It's one of those that you can put on the back of the neck, and because it's a really gentle oil, it's not hot like oregano at all, definitely one of those that you can put at the back of the spine to relieve head tension. There's actually quite a few testimonials out there where, because it's such a mild oil, it's also a sedative, by the way. Just similar to oregano. Oregano can also be very sedating, but a lot of children who struggle to calm down enough, because who wants to go to bed? I mean, there's always that fear of missing out. I mean, what game can I play next? There's quite a few moms that use marjoram diluted with carrier oil and gives their children, small children, massages underneath their feet before bedtime. And the marjoram apparently is really beneficial in supporting them to fall asleep a lot quicker, and then obviously to get better quality sleep. So there we go. That's something I definitely didn't know. So for all things head tension related, marjoram is probably not one of those that you're going to think about, but please go and try that one. And then definitely for the sleep support. Also really good for calming, and especially when you start having anxious feelings. And at the moment, with what's going on, I don't know, it's like it's fluctuating, but it's going up. The emotions are going up and the emotions are going down, and there's just so much commotion going on. So definitely an essential oil that you can pop in the diffuser. It blends incredibly well with things like lavender and rosemary for that fragrance. Also obviously ylang ylang, specifically now when we start thinking about the circulatory system pressure, those are also good oils to combine it with. And I think the biggest part here is because of the terpenol 4-ol, it is that alcohol is always associated with being a clarifying oil. And because of that, and it's got such a high concentration in marjoram, it's one of those essential oils emotionally that can bring closeness. So a better connection, for example. So in other words, moving from doubtful to trusting. And that's why, again, at that very young ages, when kids are still learning to trust things around them, marjoram, because it's such a mild oil, is definitely a really good essential oil to try out for them, especially when they are very unsure of themselves and you need to get them to trust you. All right, hopefully it's for the right reasons, okay? Getting to trust you for the right reasons. Let's not abuse that situation, please. So yes, marjoram is an exceptional oil with very many benefits. And if you are using a therapeutic grade essential oil, that's awesome, because then it will probably also be food grade. Just always make sure and try and see if you can get lab results for your specific batch of oil, because that's sort of a dead giveaway on whether it's actually been tested enough to be beneficial for your body, have a medicinal support for your body, and whether it's clean enough, pure enough, because do remember that the essential oil industry is unregulated. So if you can get the results and you don't necessarily know what they mean, it's always a good idea to go and find out. Just to show you what the ratios are of all the various chemical constituents in there. But usually if they are food grade, if you're using a food grade brand, that's really good. Marjoram is an essential oil that can be used all three ways. So really good in a diffuser, especially when you start blending it with alternate oils. So things like lavender, ylang ylang, rosemary, all the mints will kind of work, because it's also got sort of a minty flavor to it, or a minty aromatic component to it. And then definitely you can use it topically. It's especially good topically because of all the musculoskeletal benefits and support that it has. And then obviously can be used internally, and here the internal use is definitely advised for people that are trying to support a really good cardiovascular system and a circulatory system. So hope that was beneficial for you today. I certainly learned quite a few extra things about marjoram. Probably going to start using marjoram a little bit more often now, especially now that my favorite brand's marjoram has been released in our country only this month. So really excited about that. So give your marjoram a try and let me know. Come back to this live and pop in the comments what you've used it for. I'm going to... Where did I put that book now? I actually had a book I was going to give you. Yes, I just want to quickly give you at least one recipe before you go. So if you can just give me a second there. I've got two favorite books, obviously. The one is Oil Magic and the other one is The Essential Life. So this recipe that I'm going to talk about now, which they call Muscle Mend, I like that name, comes from Advanced Oil Magic, and it says that you need to combine 2 drops of marjoram with 1 drop of helichrysum, which is obviously very good for the nervous system as well, helps with cell regeneration too, and we call helichrysum sort of liquid stitches, if you can just pop in your head what that's going to do for you. And then combine that with wintergreen, 1 drop of wintergreen, and that's going to be a really good combination in a carrier oil as a massaging agent to support when you've got discomfort in your joints and your muscles. Do remember though that wintergreen is a blood thinner. There are some safety precautions when you do use wintergreen. It's also one of those oils that you can't be using internally because the plant itself is not edible. Even if you've got a food grade oil, you should never be consuming wintergreen. So that's a really nice blend to try, Muscle Mend. When we get through all the single essential oils, right at the end, when I've gone through all the oils that I've used in my Ankle Mend blend, then I'll obviously be releasing that as well. So just a recap of that Muscle Mend. It's 2 drops marjoram, 1 drop helichrysum, and 1 drop wintergreen that you can combine in about a teaspoon of carrier oil and just give the discomfort areas a little bit of a massage. So hope to see you guys all next week soon. Thursday at 12 for my next oil, and I think it's going to be another newbie, one of those that we haven't been exposed to much. So hopefully it's going to be exciting. See you all soon. Thanks for joining. Bye bye.